Good evening, everyone. I'm calling the special meeting of the City of La Habra Heights to order for April 20th, 2026. And we'll go through the roll call. Norm?
Here.
Greg?
Here.
John?
Here.
Harold? And Brian's here. And I'll lead us in the flag salute. Everybody stand, please. And I have one public comment card. Steve Blagden, please.
Thank you, Stephen Blagden, Citron Road. I'll start with the strategic plan item. I remember we were going to investigate disincorporation with LA County or increasing the percentage of the property taxes, and or investigate annexation into Orange County. I looked at that. It'll take time, and it's not simple. It looks like the average for the Orange County city is about 14 to 15% of the property tax. A benefit would be the islands could easily become part of La Habra, and La Habra Heights could remain a separate city. Then in the law enforcement part, look at private security to supplement the sheriff. Then go into the budget, revenue page 4, franchise fees, $315,000. That's a large enough number to be itemized. Page 5, I see A, B, C, D, which looks like a footnote reference, but I couldn't find any footnote. Transfers in and out should have sources and destination. General services, 33% increase in insurance, and also in the fire department. This is likely due to lawsuit settlements, which insurance really doesn't pay, it just finances, and the city has to pay it off. So that's a good to listen tomorrow to the harassment training. Public safety should have a footnote for the $500,000 increase from 25 to 26, which I think was because the ARPA funds were used, but that should be footnoted so someone looking at it knows and isn't bewildered. Should also be a breakdown between the regular sheriff's charge and then the supplement. And finance, there's a disproportionate increase in medical and dental that might use a footnote. Measure W cannot be used for street sweeping. And then the total expenditures line didn't carry down. Fire department, $455,000 for a vehicle. If you've spoken to Senator Archuleta, he was almost begging the city to tell him what the city needs, particularly fire equipment. Roads, the 25-26 project's going to carry over. The 26-27 project is coming in 26-27. So there should be at least 2 roads projects in 26-27, but it looks like with expenditures they're only doing 1. Remember, the rest of the roads, which are quite a few left, have to be done on the last 3 projects. And you did find that there was a benefit to combining projects, so that should be looked at for the 25-26 combined with 26-27, and maybe with the final project, which is 27-28, to finish everything off. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Sherry?
That I created before the meeting, but at least you're all awake at this point, right?
You woke us all up.
There you go.
So over the last few meetings, I have heard you talk about the need to increase our taxes or fire assessment or road assessment because of our kind of projected reduced revenue and our increased expenditures. And I want to compliment the city manager and his staff. You did a great job on balancing the budget, which is really important. And there isn't a lot of room here, I can see. You know, it's not the biggest budget in the world, and we don't have a lot of room. So I guess what I'm here to say is this is your opportunity to help educate the residents of La Habra Heights as to why it is important to increase our assessments and/or our taxes. I think that it's your opportunity to help us understand that. I don't think these budget documents do that very well. I think that when I look at it and I see the transfers out, and I kind of saw that about 800,000 went to fire and the other 700,000 went, you know, somewhere else, and we had $1 million less in some account that we got last year we didn't get this year, $1 million that probably offset. But my point is that we may need to look at this strategically. So in other words, you can't really go in and try to convince the residents that we need to have everything at one time. We can't do road assessments and fire assessments and tax increases all at the same time. And so you might want to start to look at it in pieces, in departmental budgets. For example, if we want to start with the fire assessment, what we might want to do is to focus on what do we really need to fill the hole and to provide ongoing in that department. So if 700,000 is about what we're transferring out to help with the fire department, 800,000. Do we need $1 million or $1.2 million if we also accumulated money for things that have to be replaced every 3 or 4 years, like their equipment and like their vehicles and, you know, capital improvements? Let's get that on a cyclical replacement and get to know really what those budgets look like on an annual basis. And I would encourage you to consider doing that first, because Palisades is so close to everyone's mind that to get that supported by the residents, I think would be an easy fix, is to try to increase that and get a COLA on top. Because everyone is paying attention now to the fire, and then during the next year, you could start to evaluate what do we need for the roads. It sounds like we're repairing roads based on our budget, rather than evaluating what we need to do the roads. And so maybe what we need to do is to figure out what percentage of the roads should we be doing each year over I don't know how long roads last. This is way out of my ballpark, 8 years, 10 years, whatever. How many linear miles or however you calculate do we need so that we could then the following year perhaps go in and try to get a road assessment increase. And then in I guess it would be the following year, then you could evaluate how the fire assessment and the road assessment are dealing with those departmental issues. Do you really need a tax increase at that point or not? And then you would have a better idea of what you would need. So my point is that I'm not questioning necessarily after looking at the numbers that we don't need money. I just don't think we're doing a good job in educating people about why we need it, what it will be used for, and making sure that people will support it, because we don't want to put it on the ballot and have it fail. You want to put it on the ballot and have it succeed. So those are my comments. It's kind of hard to make comments when there's not a lot of narrative around the budget, because maybe a lot of my questions about the budget will be answered in the presentation. But so my comments are really, let's be strategic on what we ask for and try to figure out a way where we can get what we need to keep the city alive.
Well, thank you very much for those comments. Okay, with that, we'll move into the fiscal year 2026-27 preliminary budget study session. And may I have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We'll have a short presentation here, a PowerPoint that kind of walks us through the budget and our steps. This is our early preliminary budget. So obviously from here, we will take these numbers, refine them a little further, input from council and community, and then we'll have another workshop coming up to look at that again before we move towards adoption of the budget. So we'll get started with our PowerPoint, and Angie will make that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight is our first budget study session. There's numbers that are still rolling in, so this is a very premature draft. So if we turn to the slide, what is the operating budget? The city budget is the most important document produced each year, guiding the operations and the priorities of our local government. As a legal document, it authorizes obligations and expenses while reflecting the City Council's policies and priorities. It acts as a financial blueprint, detailing resource allocations across departments and setting spending limits to ensure fiscal responsibility. It also promotes transparency and accountability, facilitating the delivery of essential services to our residents. What is the purpose of the operating budget? Well, again, it serves as a legal document that grants the city the authority to incur obligations and pay expenses. It reflects City Council's priorities and policies, guiding decisions throughout the fiscal year. It specifies the means by which programs and/or services will be provided to the community. It allocates resources to departments by prioritizing spending and ensuring the funds are allocated in alignment with community needs and goals. It also controls departmental spending by setting limits on how much each department may use per fiscal year. And it promotes accountability and transparency in the use of public funds. As for the budget process, the budget development, department heads receive budget worksheets with estimates. Then city manager and department heads will review, and also this is their chance to make any requests that they need for their department. And then finance department will kind of put their proposed budget together, kind of play around with the numbers, and also add revenue forecasts as they come in. For the city council approval, the city manager presents the budget during the budget study sessions. In June, we will have a public hearing held also for community input. City Council will review and make any recommendations or revisions for the budget before it's adopted. And just keep in mind, if the budget is not adopted by July 1st, the last draft becomes our final budget. So, budget preparation process. First step is city admin prepares the budget. 2, city council approves the budget. 3, it's the actual implementation, and then the last step is the annual year-end audit. So our budget preparation actually starts right as soon as the mid-year budget is approved. I roll right around to the upcoming budget. So again, I print out every department's budget worksheet so they can review. There they make any recommendations or request any needs they may have. And then we kind of just sit down, city manager and department heads, we go through their needs and kind of put everything together. So the numbers are constantly changing. Right now we are in the phase where we have our first budget study session. Again, numbers are super premature right now. The next meeting I should have better numbers with more to the budget, like the footnotes. I can't really put footnotes right now because everything's still changing. So in May, we'll have the second budget study session. I should have footnotes there and it should be a little beefier with more information. And then June 8th will be the adoption of the budget. Now, as for the general fund, fiscal year 2026-27 proposed general fund budget, the expenditures are estimated to be 6.9 million. And this does include an annual contribution for our insurance through CJPIA. There's an estimated increase of about 66,000, almost 67,000. So just so you are aware, in case you don't know, we are in a shared pool, so it's not just us, it's other cities. So if there are any claims, it's going to obviously increase. So in regards to public safety, LA County Sheriff's, their deputy sheriff unit did decrease, so now it's 4%. I believe last year it was 4.5. The liability trust fund increased from 13.5% to 14.5%. And our projected revenue as of right now is about 5.5 million. Our revenue consists primarily of property tax, franchise fees, development fees, and then admin fees, and those are our main source of revenues. As for the restricted funds, we do have fire tax, and then our transportation funds that we receive through the state, which is gas tax, highway utility user tax, and then we have SB1. We do receive money from Metro, which is Prop A, Prop C, Measure R, and Measure M, as well as we do receive county funding for Measure W, and then we have the assessment district number 7, and we have other miscellaneous restricted revenue funds like AQMD, TDA, CDBG, recycling grant, COPS monies, and PEG fees. So for the fire tax, we are estimating 1.3 million for fire tax. As of right now, we don't have any grant revenue. We haven't been awarded anything. I know the fire chief has applied for a few grants. However, one of them we were denied, and another one I think is still pending. We do get rental or lease rentals from CARE for allowing them to use our facility. For oil inspections, we're estimating about 67,000. And then brush clearance, liens, this is from the previous year. So whatever is liened for 25-26, this number should reflect those amounts. Paramedic membership subscriptions, we're estimating about 14,000. And then paramedic recoveries, again, these numbers, that they vary every year. So we're estimating about 20,000. For ambulance patient transport, 15,000, and then our transfer in is about 1.5 million. Capital improvement project, total for fiscal year 26-27, we're estimating about 2.8 million. Of that, 479,000 will be for this assessment district number 7. Then we have about 334,000 that will be from or for some of the restricted funds for Metro, and community block grant 124,000, and then in the fire fund we're estimating an expense of about 158,000 that will go towards our CIP budget. As for the general fund, we're estimating an expenditure of 995,000. And just so you know, we're still expecting monies from HSIP, which is the Local Highway Safety Improvement Program, of 788,000. So that project will probably begin in 26, 27. So we're hoping we also receive reimbursement for that project then. So as of right now, we'll continue to monitor revenues. Like I said, the numbers are still rolling in, same thing with expenditures. So I don't have all the estimates for property tax. We're still working on development fees, resource extraction fees, investments. It just, again, we're gonna see how much we think we can earn this year, and then restricted funds. So the budget will be adopted June 8th, 2026 at the regular city council meeting. Attached is the draft with numbers. If anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer them right now.
So I'm sort of interested in a bunch of things, but the one thing that drops to me right away is because we don't have a balance sheet in municipal accounting, we have no idea what assets are sitting out there that might be coming home to us. And that brings me to the brush clearance. We have tons of liens out in brush clearance. We don't ever expose them to the budget because we don't know when they're going to come in. I don't believe we have any affirmative action to try to bring them home. There are ways to do that, obviously. They can be sold to the county. There's all kinds of ways to do that. But I think, so when I look at brush clearance and I think to myself, we have all this expenditure for brush clearance, what we're overstating the expense of brush clearance because we're not collecting revenues to offset that. Literally, we're either not recognizing them as a future acquisition of revenue, or we're simply not attempting to collect them. And I raised that issue because when you don't have a balance sheet, you don't really understand the stuff that isn't in the budget. And I don't exactly know how that works. In business, if we didn't have balance sheets in business, we couldn't understand where we were. We'd never be able to figure out what our value was, what our value would be in the future. So I don't honestly know how we approach that, but it sort of makes this difficult to analyze, and that's compounded with restricted funds. But when you get down to it, on all of the money that's flowing out of the general fund into specialized capital improvement projects or capital operations projects, it's very difficult for us to figure out what our liquidity would ultimately be if we were able to pull these revenues in. I agree with comments made earlier from the residents that we obviously have to approach these things piecemeal. And one of the questions I would ask generally of staff is there's a difference between the fire department's assessment. It has a different legal structure than the roads assessment. The roads assessment is sort of a simple ballot. You get 50%, you win. That's not true with the fire assessment at all. And to restructure the fire assessment, if we're going to consider that, and I think we should, I think that's the right thing to do, we need someone to explain to us what we would have to do that. It really is a different animal because it's governed by state law. So it's kind of like, if we're thinking about doing those things, we better understand what we can execute. So those are my two initial thoughts and questions. If we got any answers to the fire department model assessment, I'd love to hear them.
So current fire tax is that. It's a Prop 218 tax. It is a special tax, so it does require a 2/3 vote. and like the roads is a benefit assessment district. So it does not go to the vote of the voters. It goes to a ballot to property owners, which they select yes or no and mail back in. And then it is 50% plus one of those returned ballots would be the one that whether or not we passed the benefit assessment district or not. So slightly different structure. If we wanted to relook at the fire tax, it would probably be that. It'd be a vote of the people, and because it is a special tax, it would be the 2/3 that would be required for it to pass.
So in the fire assessment model, we have sort of different pricing based on size of the parcels and vulnerability of the parcels. And so it's a much more kind of complicated way of approaching things. So although I tend to agree with the commenter that that would be the politically easiest thing to push at the moment, I'm wondering how we might understand whether we actually can do it in this cycle, whether in November we can do that. The other, as I understand it, for the roads, we can do that anytime we wish to. It doesn't have to be paired up to a general election, whereas with the fire department, it's got to be paired up to a general election. Is that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions? Norm, did you have anything right now?
Not at the moment. I'm still trying to formulate, put it into
Okay.
words.
That's fine. Carol?
Well, I have my old bugaboo, which is,
Well, the transfer is made up of, it's not one specific thing. It's a bunch of items in the fire department. So, for example, if you go to page 27, or actually the top of page 28. If you look at the last column, for example, for the first item, normally we've budgeted about, or the actual for the OSHA regulation expense, we have 5,300, 14,000, and last fiscal year we budgeted 5,000. For the upcoming budget, we're thinking about 50,000 because this is covering.
So when we looked at this one, we sat down with the chief and went through the fire department budget and looked at what are the needs over there. So that $50,000 that's in the OSHA would include replacing their air bottle compressor. So the machine they use to fill the bottles that they're for their SCBAs. And that one we have right now, I believe, is like from 1996 and is no longer serviceable. So it has the ability to fill 4 bottles, and it's down to being able to fill 1 bottle right now. So that's something that definitely needs to be replaced. So when you're looking at that, like some of those numbers we went through, same thing with so maintenance and radio communications. They have a need for like 12 additional radios, so they need more radios. Those radios that they carry around, green-looking radios, are about $8,500 a piece. So to be able to add those to it, it was $102,000 on top of just the regular maintenance of the radios and communication equipment that we have. Was an additional expense for that department. Vehicles is another one that we looked at. Obviously, we do have some need for vehicles, as we always do in the fire department. So in there, that is looking at potentially purchasing. So if you, they don't have our breakdown one up. So in the CIP budget, we're looking at the potential to replace a brush control vehicle. So Our current brush patrol vehicle is a 2001 Ford F-350. So about $300,000 is what we looked at, the potential cost to replace that brush vehicle. We have a need for another command vehicle. So one of the chief's vehicles, we've been limping along for a long time. That one he drives right now is what, the 2010 Chevy Silverado that the deputy chief drives today is on its last legs. We disposed of the inspector vehicle because it was broken, so there's a need to replace the inspector's vehicle as well. So we're looking at $300,000 which is laid out in the capital section of the budget, capital improvements for that, like $300,000 for a brush patrol, $100,000 for a command vehicle, maybe another $45,000 to replace an inspector vehicle. Exactly. We wanted to. We also need to look at a type 2 or type 3. So our 772, as we talk about fire engine wise, they have a lifespan around 10 years is when they should be replaced. Our current 772, the really tall one that the guys drive, they've taken on strike teams, that was purchased in 2017. So that'd be something that if we were doing things on a 10-year replacement cycle for engines, we theoretically should be buying, at least have the money set aside for that. So that's one of the reasons why we put it in there. We know ultimately we're probably not going to be able to purchase all of these things this year, but it's one of those things as we look at. Also included in this is turnouts. We know we have turnouts that are expiring, so there's funding in there to purchase the turnouts for the ones that we know are expiring for that. Ultimately, this is sort of where we start with the budget. We look at the larger budget, and then we work our way and get down to sort of where we can be within our revenues to make sure that we don't end up doing a lot of deficit spending. We try to work hard not to do that, but it's also put us in a place where we have lots of equipment and lots of vehicles that need to be replaced because we haven't been putting the money away over the years or putting things on a cycle to be able to replace them. So we're in this hole that we have to try to build our way back out of. We're working with our stormwater consultant right now on a couple of larger scale projects that we can utilize a larger chunk of those funds to make sure we don't hit a time where we have to refund the money.
So I know Stephen brought up Senator Archuleta. I know we've had him out here a couple of times now. I know that Brian and Greg have talked about some informal meetings with the senator to try and extract some commitments. He does have a passion towards the fire department, so hopefully we can, pick some items to focus that effort on, because those are big. I mean, those are big chunks, right, of the budget that we can do. Rafferty, we also, I know we had some personnel issues in the fire department, but a big source of offset revenue in the fire department was the strike teams. Are we getting ourselves ready this year? I mean, it's already, there was 3 fires again today. Are we positioning the department to be able to man a strike team and use 774, I think it is? 774 or 2?
774 is in the process of being sold. 772 is having maintenance done to the pumps right now, and hopefully should be back soon for that. They have been looking at strike teams and making sure the model for strike teams has changed a little bit with requiring engine bosses and some certifications. We do have some captains that have those designations that can go out and lead a strike team. So they are poised, if called upon, to be able to go out and do some strike team work. for that one. The other,
We're not, I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, I heard that, right, that there were some law changes. If the laws are changing such that it's not feasible, then we don't need the third engine. And we can get rid of the third engine. So we just have to kind of figure out what we're gonna do. Either we're gonna support building that capability, which I think, I mean, it attracts people to our department. There's people that want that experience and want to be able to get it. B, it's a source of revenue to offset the cost of the fire department. And C, you know, I can tell you at the Altadena fire, up at Altadena at the Eaton fire, you know, even the senator mentioned this. It was good to see your fire department participating in these events. So we kind of have to make a decision there, because I think that's a big part of the budget for the fire department.
it is. It's definitely something that there is a value for us going on strike teams. We do earn some revenue for equipment being out there. Obviously, we pay the personnel the time for being out there. The other thing that we try to manage with strike teams is most of our captains are part-time captains, so they're limited on the number of hours. We send them on strike teams. Sometimes we can burn through those hours, and we can use up a captain's time really, really quickly.
Right, and that's what I mean. I think as part of this effort, we really should look at that, because we fish or cut bait, right? We either decide it's something we're gonna go after and we start building the department to be able to do it, so we get that extra revenue coming in to help pay for equipment. Or we don't spend the $1 million to buy a third engine. Because if we're not gonna, the only reason we have the third engine is really to be able to facilitate the strike team. I don't think we need 3 frontline engines.
No.
So we kind of, maybe we should have maybe Brian and I should sit down with the chief and have a discussion as part of this to say, is this viable? Is it something we should be doing as a city, or should we decide to sell 772? Well, it still has some, was it the CAMI? Or no, it's not the CAMI, it's the...
It was 774, which was an old...
No, it's the one, it's the tall one.
yeah.
So
Timberwolf.
that's the one that's the strike.
We've typically sent that engine on our strike teams. It's a little more set up for strike team deployment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is good. It adds a value. It's definitely something that is a very good experience for the firefighters that are here to be able to go out on those strike teams and earn that experience and start their task books as well.
Okay. That's all I got, Brian.
Oh, that's good. John brought up some really good points there, and it's, we both need to sit down with the chief, because we've received a lot of money in the past for these strike teams, and it gives the guys a lot of experience, and it, you know, it helps the community tremendously. So, I mean, I'd like to see it keep going, but obviously, if you can't do it, then we need to divest ourselves of it.
I would rather put the money in making sure we have a rapid response capability within the city, i.e. a brush patrol that could get places quickly and get to places where the big engine can't, and provide structure protection and, you know, home protection, than spend the money on a Type 1 that can't get to the places that we need to get to, and B, is only there because we need a third engine if we're going to send people out on these strike teams. So I just think we should have that discussion and decide as we start looking at, I mean, I'm so happy to see the 5-year plan. That's fantastic that we're beginning to look at things over a 5-year period, so that we can come up with those special accounts to start setting money aside. But we have to make a conscientious decision, right, that directionally that's where we're going to invest our capital dollars. And, you know, so that, like I said, I think the tall fire truck is probably, you know, it's a pretty good truck. It should be able to, I know we tried for 10 years, but, you know, how old was the last one we replaced? Carol was here.
That one, I believe, is 2008.
Last 2008.
2009. We're coming up on 20 years on it.
No? Yeah, so I mean, I know we aspire to do it on a 10-year cycle, but I think that it should be condition-based. It shouldn't just be time-based, because, again, these engines don't get used the way a typical fire engine gets used. You look at the number of calls we have, you look at the small footprint of the city, they don't quite get the same use and abuse that a county rig gets. So I think we need to look at, a condition-based program. My company does that now, right? We used to do a lot of stuff time-based, and we realized, there's probably a more effective way to do things, which is condition-based. And it's kind of like we did with the last engine, right? We looked at, hey, how much maintenance does it cost to maintain this? Is the value worth the amount of, O&M that we're putting into it? And is it time to say, no, let's take the O&M dollars and start setting them aside for a larger capital investment in a piece of equipment? But all that depends on how you're going to use the fire department.
I agree with that. I think we should agendize a discussion about the functional use of the department. Night before last, we had a fire on Arch-Hill, Phil Kwan's house, and Phil's on a flag lot. It's got a very ugly driveway that's hard to turn onto. No big piece of equipment could possibly get down there. So we ended up having to use LA County and some of our folks and Area Eat folks. And we pretty much lost the house, but that's a point. I mean, this is a wilderness area and we need Class 3 trucks. I mean, it's just obvious. And to get good firemen that want to be trained in wildfire work, then if we have the equipment to support wildfire work, which at the present we're sadly lacking, I think it's a directional shift. I'm glad you brought that up, John. I think that's right.
Yeah. So, I think there's some discussions we need to have about how do we want to, and we should, the chief obviously needs to be a part of that. And I would hope that, residents would be a part of that too. I know there's some residents that support completely disbanding our firefighting capabilities and shift just to a paramedic service. I was willing to explore that until the last few days, the last couple of months where we've had, 3 major fires in the city. And our guys were the first ones there, putting water on that fire. LA County's always going to be 10 minutes behind where our fire department was at. So even though this fire here was way on the north end of town, our firefighters were there. I was looking at, the app. They were there a good 10 minutes before the first county. I saw the first county unit going up the hill. So, yeah.
Okay, back to the fire department a little bit. That fire EMS subscription, we need to do something with that, agendize, and it needs to go up considerably because that's totally out of date. So we need to look at that for part of our revenue base. The fire EMS subscription, where it's $45 a year or something.
The paramedic membership program.
That should be at least a couple $100 or something. So that's 20 years old or something, so it's, and I would like to see myself personally that this come back as a totally balanced budget, and the other items like, okay, we have to go buy an engine or something, that's a separate line item that we can vote on separately when the time comes around as a council. And that bottle filling machine, I know that's another $60,000. Well, maybe we have to have it, or maybe we can partner up with LA County for the time being and let them fill our bottles. But we need to have those discussions. I guess my point is that going into this year, the money in and the money out needs to balance itself. If we want extra equipment and all that stuff, it should be outside of the budget per se. And we'll go to Bob Archuleta and things and give him all of those items. And all these one-time expensive items we can take a look at separately and try to figure something out for it, or bring it back to the council and vote on it. But that's just my self-feeling.
And I'd also, I saw a note on the Facebook group, and I'm not sure, I'm trying to do some research to figure out whether the Measure E wildfire tax that LA County applied to property taxes, if that applies to La Habra Heights. I don't know that it does, but I'm trying to figure it out. Someone was saying it was on their tax bill, but I think they might have been confusing our fire tax with with that tax.
Yeah, so both LA City and LA County have adopted special tax
But-
overrides.
but-
And they're collected by the county.
But my understanding is if the city has their own fire department, then they're not assessing that tax on residents of that city. But I've asked Rafferty to look into it. Where I'm going with this is, if we are going to, and it's not inexpensive, I think it's 60 cents a square foot or something like that. It's not an inexpensive tax. If that tax is applicable to La Habra Heights, Rafferty, we should really go to Janice and the county and say, hey, we either help us out with buying equipment, like, because that's what they say they're going to use it for, help us out with buying equipment, or give us a share of that tax to use for our own fire department, since we are in a high fire area. So like I said, I tried to do some research to see if it applied. I couldn't figure out if it applied to cities with their own fire department, but you never trust those AI generated responses that you get. And it was an AI generated response that I was looking at that said it didn't apply to. I wasn't going to go read the whole thing for this meeting tonight. But
I haven't read the whole tax language to see.
But if it does, that's another avenue we could explore, especially since we are in a high fire area and we're not taking the services of LA County Fire like other high fire cities are. Most high fire cities in high fire areas are using the services of LA County, and that was the justification for that. I mean, it's a several $100. I mean, it's almost as big as our fire tax. So for most people, up here in the Heights, you figure the average home is,
I think the argument is pretty simple. Even if it doesn't exist at the moment, the argument is our fire department assists the county all the time.
right.
And as a consequence of the mutual aid rules, we have to do that. And if the county needs that, it needs to have equipment that doesn't fit in their ordinary revenue stream, then we do too.
Right, that's the exact point that I'm making.
It's a pretty straight, yeah.
If you looked at the justification that they used on the measure, it was we need additional staff and additional equipment to deal with the wildfire risk. And this was this wasn't even on the heels of Eden. This was pre-Palisades that they had this measure on the ballot. So I don't remember seeing it, so I don't know if it applies to our city, but I've asked the city manager to look into it. And that might be, again, another source of revenue that we can go after for the fire department.
I have a question concerning the services we give to the county islands and so forth. I had an individual who lives there approach me a few days ago. We apparently sent him a large bill for several paramedic responses over the last several months. And my first question is, do we charge them for paramedic services, or is this something taken care of by the county?
And Norm, I can tell you, even if we could charge the county, I don't know that we would want to do that, given the amount of resources.
I'm not proposing. I'm saying this individual who lives in the county island he says he was charged by the city for the paramedic services. And the second question is, if that's the case, are they also eligible for the subscription service?
Our paramedic membership services, the PMP service, as it is set up today, is only for La Habra Heights residents. I know there is somebody that lives right on the border over there that we'd like to try to do it every year. But from the way it is set up and the way we've done it in the past, it only covers La Habra Heights residents. I believe we do invoice or charge for paramedic services to people outside of that as part of that paramedic recoveries monies that we get for those things. So people that have accidents and other things like that are just traveling through town, we do try to recover costs.
Can I move back for a minute to the general fund summary? I have two questions, one with revenue. And there's a delta of $1 million between 25-26 and 26-27 proposed. I'm wondering why our revenue is down $1 million.
I'm sorry, where are you looking?
Page 2, general fund summary.
for the total.
Well, the total income for 25, 26 as amended when we did it is 6.92, but the miscellaneous revenue category was 2108, but then in our proposed is 1086, so it's $1 million down. And I'm wondering why we would be $1 million down.
Okay, so this is actually, if you look at page 5, you'll see miscellaneous revenues. So this is a refund, the majority of it is for refunds and recovery. We were awarded money for the traffic signal. So that's why that number is so large, because that happened in this current fiscal year. As for 26, 27, we're only going to receive about like 800,000 for the guardrail project. So that's why it decreased so much. This is just for reimbursements that I know of. We could receive money for a claim, it would go in there, but since I don't know of anything else coming in the future, I just know of the 788,000, that's why it's in there. And that's why in total it decreased a lot, because a lot of it had to do with the Caltrans money we received for the traffic signal.
Reimbursement.
So I'm still not clear on what is a refund and recovery? What is it?
So when we constructed the Avocado Crest and Hacienda Road signal and the restriping, we paid out of pocket for that, and then we received a reimbursement from
So it's a
Caltrans.
payment of an advance.
Yeah, it's a repayment of the work. So reimbursement for our cost of doing the construction.
Okay, so, but still, that doesn't tell me why there's $1 million delta.
Because we did that work in this current fiscal year, so we should be reimbursed in this current fiscal year. We're not receiving another $1 million for that work next year because we've already completed it.
This is a loss of funding. It's a permanent-
No, because if you could think of it as like a grant fund, so it's not a reoccurring revenue source that we get. It's a one-time payment for work.
Second question, same page, page 2, under expenditure summaries. So Public Works was running about 2.6, 2.7 for the 24 and 5 and 25 and 6. And amended, it jumped up to 3.2, so that's an $800,000 delta increase of expenditures. So between the two of them, that's almost $2 million. So I don't know what it's telling me, frankly. I don't know, was it because we did 2 projects at the same time? Why are we in this amended version at 3.3 million?
Sure, again, the traffic signal. So we expensed everything for the traffic signal into the Public Works account. So we still also we had the street project, but the majority of it was because of the traffic signal. All the construction, everything occurred in in this current fiscal year.
So then where would be the corresponding, as I understand the recent addition of the signal, that was largely funded with other people's money, not ours.
Caltrans.
So I'm looking at an expenditure of $800,000. But where would I see the income? In other words, when we're being repaid, where would I see that appear in the general fund summary of income?
So again, if you go back to page 5, It'll be under miscellaneous revenues. If you look at object code 4843, refunds and recoveries, a portion of that is part of this expense. So, and then we also have the street project, which we had to pay a large chunk out of the general fund.
So that's,
So a portion of the refunds and recovery, the reimbursement, goes into this expenditure.
So we spent the money and then got money back for it.
thank you.
And also the, again, this street project, how much was the 23-25 street project?
Awarded is $1,575,000 plus $187,000 in CMN inspection.
Any other questions? Did I have agreement on my consensus with what I was talking about earlier? I mean, where I said that I'd like to see this as a balanced budget and then carve the exceptions out of there, and we'll do that as a separate approval.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably, but let me say this first.
Okay.
So this is a budget that is based upon projected revenue. It is not a budget based upon need. So it's not a budget that is based upon our needs as a city to perform for our residents as they need. It's a budget that is based upon revenue. When you base the budget upon revenue, you're sub-optimizing all of your operations. I mean, we proved that through the sustainability workshops. I mean, there's no question about that. So for me to look at a projected budget and say, okay, I understand that, I need to understand the trade-offs between what the needs are, what legitimate service level needs are, and what the revenue is, because only with that do we know whether we're getting adequate revenue. I mean, it totally moves towards how do we increase the revenue, where do we increase it? It's the two. Without the two, I can't understand how. I mean, you know, the big sheets of the budget, we're projecting out for 5 years, right? There's a 5-year projection. Well, for the large part, except for those that are mechanical increases, those projected budgets are well, they're guesses. They're guesses, or they're holding places. They don't tell me anything. So a 5-year proposal, it doesn't do much for me other than tell me where you have a mechanical payment from Measure M or Measure R, whatever it is. And it increases because of a cost of living increase. Then that's real. Those are real numbers. But what aren't real numbers are sort of guesses about things. And I don't know, that doesn't help me at all to do my job. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm flummoxed by, you know, we look at how the general fund is propping up two things, essentially, the fire department and the roads. And we're not going to stop propping those up, period. It's got to be done. And we're blowing off, you know, $1.5 million a year on that. Now, yes, so we got to fix that, obviously, right? But if we don't know what a realistic, real-world, needs-based budget is, then how do we do that? How do we compare them? You have to have, you know, if you're in business, you have to provide services. You have to construct a budget that's based upon need, right? And yeah, you keep it as thin as you can as you grow and you get more revenue, but we don't really know what the needs of the budget are. I'm just talking about the general fund, not the capital improvements. Well, the staff, the fire department, and roads, and the sheriffs. And so, you know, I mean, Stephen brought up the question of, well, can we supplement the sheriff's hours with private? Well, you can do that. That's doable, you know. I'm not saying it's, John, I'm not saying it's a right answer, I'm just saying it's doable.
I think JPIA has a concern with cities using private security. I think they have a big concern about cities using private security. There's a liability issue there that
Well, I guess
we
it
would have
depends.
to we would have to approach JPIA about if we were gonna do that. I did look into that based off of a previous statement,
And
and they were,
I don't want to belabor that issue. I'm just saying there's things that you have people that, and I'm satisfied with sheriff's service. You know, obviously there's a bunch of people that have been unsatisfied with it.
well, I looked into it because I think it's a good idea, right? It's an inexpensive way to at least have a presence, even if it's just a scarecrow presence up in the city.
Yep.
And it's fairly inexpensive, but I don't know that we could convince JPIA to go along with it. We would have to work on that with them. Because other cities much bigger than us, they kind of took that liability on themselves. I don't know that we would want to take on the liability of hiring someone and then, I mean, that could get really expensive very quickly if something bad happened.
And I'm sure,
I mean, I agree
So
with,
balanced budget not including proposed capital set-asides? So leave the capital out of it, is that?
correct, we try to get grants and stuff for all those large exception items, right? And I agree with Greg wholeheartedly that you should have a needs, also a needs, not necessarily you're gonna move into that, but you have a separate needs budget also, and crank in your depreciation on the vehicles and everything else over the years. So you know exactly what it's costing you, or theoretically what it's gonna cost you in the next 10 years going forward.
I'm a little worried about, you know, look at what happened with grants, right? With the new administration coming in, I mean, they all but dried up. You know, there's not a lot of money in California for grants right now.
I know.
So I think I'm okay looking at that, but I do think that we need to, we need to look at all angles, you know, depreciating vehicles over a longer period of time, not just over 10 years, but maybe over 20 years, which seems to be more realistic for our city.
Well, whatever number you put on it, but we should at least have, we should have a 10-year projected and carry those numbers, so at least you can look at that side of the picture, right?
I would want to make sure that the budget we looked at had some set-asides for capital, even if it's not fully funding the capital investment. We go after grants and something for components of it, but we would be, I wouldn't want to set aside all the capital investment like large, without some type of piggy bank that we start putting money into to pay for those things coming out of our general fund.
so a needs budget would be married to a prioritization by the department that needs the money, right? So a needs budget would be prioritized according to the estimate of the professional that's going to say, okay, this I need first, I need this later.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But if we don't have a needs budget, we don't have that. We have no way of really prioritizing.
Oh, I know, I support the balanced budget approach. I just want to make sure that as part of the balancing of that budget, we do set aside, even though it's not what we think is the full amount, some component going into designated accounts for large-scale capital.
I agree, I truly,
We already put a little bit aside, what, 50,000 a year or something for the fire? Did we increase that?
I'm not saying we need to increase it, I just want to make sure we don't delete it entirely, because, I don't know, maybe I misunderstood what you were saying, which was go after grants for that stuff.
Well, I think
I
that's,
just get worried that that money might not always be there.
you have recurring expenses and non-recurring expenses, right? So it's, and we need to reach out to Bob Archuleta's office, obviously, to see if we can fund some of these large items.
Well, I think we need to reach out to not only Bob, but LA County, Lisa Calderon, and others that, you know, our tax money is going into these funds that they have discretionary use of, and we should be approaching them to pull some of that back for our city.
You should have a balanced budget, so you spend within our means, and then you should also have over here what we really needs, and then we can work on education, and if we need to go out for special tax or what else, we can do that.
Remember that one of the ways you get a balanced budget is you cut expenses. And so that's the opposite, that's in opposite to need. Need is, if this is the rational thing we should strive to get to. And balancing a budget is, well, we don't have enough revenues, so we'll cut expenses, or we'll not undertake. For example, if you look at the SIP program, the 15, 16 pages, there is no budget item suggested for the replacement of the city fleet. There's literally no budget. There's a budget suggested for the 5-year plan for the gymnasium, but we know we're not going to do that. We know we don't have the money to do that. So I guess, it's like, and we know, so we have numbers in the budget year in and year out for capital improvement, and I don't see money being spent for capital improvement. And that's because we're dealing with a revenue, not a needs budget. And all I'm really suggesting, and with all these silly words I'm saying, is I'm just suggesting that we have one, so that each of us independently can look at it and say, well, I see where we need to put money. And the departments can tell us where they want to emphasize the money, what's most urgent to them,
So how difficult is it in addition to this budget to put together a needs budget?
Yeah.
Is it a big, huge burden?
They know what the needs are.
So I don't see anything wrong with his suggestion.
Good. I'm all in favor of it.
Angie and Rafferty, you got clear enough direction, or are we putting too much work on you?
We can use this as our guide for the future, so that way we know when we need to set money aside and about more or less how much. Because this isn't just current year, we can make it into 10 years, and even if we don't have the funding for it, it gives us time to find funding or set money aside.
Well,
At least we have a roadmap where we're going.
Like a little blueprint, even though it's something.
This is the culmination of all the sustainability meetings. This is where we should be. We should have a needs budget. And I don't believe it's insurmountably difficult. And like Ed and Martin's going to have to say, these are my priorities, this is what has to get done. And you and Rafferty are going to have to say, these are the pieces of equipment we absolutely have to modernize on. And, and to the extent, and then you can, so that way we can sort of hit them one at a time and fund them, actually fund them.
So I'm not a budget, okay, so when you have a regular budget, and then you have kind of total separate document that articulated, is wish list wrong, or?
It's not, it can't be a wish list. What it's got to be is, every year there are different things that need to be done from a capital standpoint. From the staffing standpoint, and equipment standpoint, inter-office equipment standpoint, phones, IT, whatever, those are just things that are stabilized, and they grow based upon how many people you need to do the tasks, and that's an easy one. The capital budget is a little bit different because the various departments have to say, okay, I need this. I really need a new lawnmower. I really need a new car. I really need this. If I don't get them, I can't operate at all efficiently, and it's going to get dangerous. And to John's point, yeah, this may not be, if you're, what I learned about the fire department when I came in last year was, well, we're doing a lot of repairs on the older equipment. And at some point in time, if, a 2008 piece of equipment, as a car, 2008, right? 2008, 17 years old. I don't know a lot of people that have a 17-year-old car, let alone the city that's got to depend upon the car to get our paid employees around the city. So to me, that highlights it. When you have a needs budget, say, okay, this is a needs budget. You want to drop it into the budget? Yes, we do. Pop, you drop it into the budget.
I drive a 20-year-old car. Brian drives a 20-year-old car.
Is it possible to have a balanced budget and put some aside each
I-
year, target?
I mean, what we should be doing is, well, my opinion of what we should be doing is, you know, we should budget for the needs of the city. We should,
Wait, and are we talking about the desired needs or the absolute needs?
well, to me, we should be budgeting for I mean, at a minimum, the absolute needs of the city, right? That should be what we budget for. We've heard through the workshops, we've heard what's important to residents, you know, and those should be the things that we look to enhance if our budget allows us to enhance them. But the absolute needs of the city should include setting aside capital dollars to ensure that we don't have budget surprises when something breaks, or, you know, you should always have those capital dollars sitting in the bank waiting to be spent on that capital project when it's due. But if you can extend the life of that capital project and make money off of those capital dollars that are sitting in the bank, we should do that. Or if we find another source of funding for those capital projects, then you can take that money and look at, okay, what are the desires that we have as a city? You know, for example, you know, extending the life of the gymnasium at the park. And, you know, I think Ray Fernandez was looking to try to get some grants, because you go in that building, and that building has some deferred maintenance needs that need to get addressed. And again, we're kind of short-sighted there, because that building does bring in revenue to the city. So we want to make sure that, you know, because the problem is if you lose the building and people have to go find other places to do those activities, that activity probably won't come back to the city. And that does, I mean, how much does the gym bring in a year? It's a fairly decent amount of money, isn't it?
Yeah,
30,
it's
40,000?
about 30,000.
You know? So, you know, you've got $30,000 there that's bringing in at very little cost to us to do that, right? I mean, a little bit of electricity, a little bit of water. You know, and you couple that $30,000 with the thing we've been talking about, trying to save $30,000 of maintenance of a vacant lot. There's $60,000 right there that we could, you know, use. So I want to make sure that we're trying to figure out how do we come up with a balanced budget that meets the needs of the city, and yet allows us to be a little bit more aggressive with going out and finding money for the bigger expenditures, but having that rainy day fund there in case that dedicated capital account that's set aside for those things, so that, you know, God forbid, you know, something happened to one of the fire engines and insurance doesn't cover it. We've got to pay for it. You know, that's a big hit on our budget if we have to do that. Right.
Well, it's the same with the roads and any of that. We don't have a small amount of money for the city. If a road washes out, we have to front load the thing.
Well,
And
I think we had to pay amount for the 2 year ago storm. Did we have to pay for all of that because we never got any money from FEMA thanks to the current administration?
We're still in the reimbursement process with them. We've completed with FEMA and are now completing that process with CalUS. So hopefully we should be a little over $500,000, I think, is what's.
But to $500,000 we had to pull out of the quote unquote rainy day fund, no pun intended, to pay for that cost.
Yes.
And it's been 2 years that we haven't been earning any money on $500,000. So I assume they're not going to pay us interest.
No.
So,
Well,
yeah.
so should staff take this current budget and pull out some of the things that would qualify as want needs rather than absolute needs?
Well, I
And
think,
then-
I mean, I'd like to see,
Try to put some-
myself personally, I'd like to see a balanced budget. So the revenue coming in, the revenue going out. Now, if you've got non-recurring items, you know, the vehicles and all that, fine. That's a separate sideline thing. And if we decide we want to fund those and pull it out of the reserves, fine.
So
But-
what are the instructions to staff?
So,
Well, if you guys agree with me.
no, I think, I agree with you. I mean, I think we need to, it sounds like, Rafferty, we need to have a meeting with the fire department and sit down and have a discussion about what's absolutely needed and what's not. What can we defer?
Well, we're on the subcommittee, so we'll do that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about, you said we don't have a brush clearance vehicle right now?
Brush inspector.
Well, I mean, to me, that's non-negotiable. We need to have, the brush inspector needs a vehicle, that's, especially right now. I mean, we're heading into brush season, what's he using?
It comes out of our pool vehicles, so it uses city hall vehicles. So we shift and rotate and go around to make sure everybody has a vehicle.
Okay,
Building
it's not
inspector.
a marked brush patrol vehicle.
No, he drives, mostly at the moment, drives the Prius, which just has our city logos on it. Doesn't say brush inspector on
See,
it.
I'm gonna put my politician hat on here for a minute, which I don't like to do, but I'm gonna do it. Because this fire up on Ardshield, there are pictures in the Facebook La Habra Heights group showing a hillside where the brush isn't cleared, and that fire sitting on the top of the hill, and some negative comments about our brush clearance program. Having a branded vehicle out in the city, driving around, doing inspections, is something that politically I want. I mean, I think, however, Stephen, however we do it, I think it's really important, Rafferty, that when he's out doing that work, that vehicle is branded, brush inspections, because, I know we're still in April, and people have a little bit more time, but the brush is drying out. There were, like I said, I'm not kidding, there were 3 fires today in Southern California. One of them right here in West Covina at the BKK landfill that burnt 6 acres. So we had the fire, at that house that was unoccupied at the time, but, still was a significant fire.
We also had some on Pocono last week as well.
So I do want to make sure that, that we have the discussion about what's important to me, making sure we have a robust brush clearance program and are funding that is something that's not.
Well, let's get with Ed and, we can come up with a vehicle. It doesn't have to be a brand new vehicle or anything, so there's vehicles out there that are relatively, that'll serve our needs at low cost. Okay, are you clear, staff, on where we need to go, I guess?
So
They can listen to the tape.
Are they gonna do a needs budget also, a dream, I don't know, whatever you call it?
I think we are, I just don't want to put more work on them.
Well, I understand that, but it's still, we've had a resident comment that would be a good thing if the residents knew what we really should have.
Well, so
yeah.
let's kind of put it this way. If we don't have a needs budget that's publishable, along with our actual budget, bless you.
Thank you.
Then, when people say, why are you raising, here's your budget, why do you want to raise rates? What's that about? What do you need to do? Well, what do? We give them words, or we say, here's what the real budget should look like in this city, but we don't have the revenue to sustain it.
Well, it seems
So
like,
on a purely political reason, you
It
need
seems
to
like-
have that budget.
it seems like you could, even if you don't do a universal, there's certain needs. You could say, even if they can't do a whole one, they could do 10 major needs or something.
No, it can be done. Are you okay with that, Angie? And you set up a depreciation schedule on these long, big items, and you charge off so much per year on them, and, obviously, we don't have the money right now on a current year to be funding those, but if you're doing it correctly, that engine that we just bought, we should put that on a 10 or 15-year lifespan, whatever we decide, and we should charge off those amount of dollars every single year. And that's exactly what Greg's talking about, a needs-based budget. Okay, so Norm, did you have anything else?
Not this time. I'll have some things for next meeting.
Greg?
Not on the budget. I have some thoughts on the goals.
Okay. John?
I think I've said enough.
Carol?
I'm fine.
Okay, so we're done, I guess, and you guys are clear on the budget. So Greg's got something else.
Okay, so the words are nice in the mission statement, vision statement, but the rubber hits the road in the core values and how we execute the core values and how we measure them. So these are not paged, so I don't know, I guess it would be, it's the second page of the first page in the prelude to the budget. So under citywide goals, there's a goal to pursue code enforcement efforts. And that's right, we are doing that, but we're not measuring it. So I would add to that and provide a measurement to City Council as to how we're doing on that level in terms of code enforcement activities and enforcement activities. And I think that should be a monthly report. Moving to fire department EMS service, it's consistent with what I just talked about, adopting a strategic plan for the fire department. We don't have one. John added a whole bunch of wonderful thoughts about how we should approach that. Do we want to have brush? You know, what do we want to do? So Chief Martin has to sort of say, okay, here's what I would do if this was your direction. Here's what I would do if it's not your direction. That needs to be measurable. Under department goals, providing monthly revenue forecast to the city and residents. I don't know if residents need to be there, but it should be transparent. But I think the city council should see a monthly revenue forecast against our projection. On the last page of these is something we talked about during the sustainability workshop, establishing a fiscal sustainable funding for road maintenance. Yeah, we got to do that. And we got to have a plan to how do we get there. And it's got to just not be something we want to do, it's got to be something that we have a plan on how we're doing it. So it's grand to have goals, but we have to measure the goals. And some of these don't need to be measured really, and I'm not sure that the existing staff could come close to measuring all of these goals and responding to them. But those are my button items that I think should be dealt with directly and monthly.
I think there might be some issues on the monthly code compliance from legality. I mean, you could give a report, I guess, of...
We do. CDD report lets you know what has been submitted, what is active, what has been closed for the month is typically how we do it, but we don't go much beyond like what has happened related to like notice, inspection, that in the actual list. The list is in the CDD report every month.
So that wouldn't be a problem?
You want more details on the list?
I'm not asking, I'm just asking what Mr. Steffler wanted in terms of the monthly update on the code compliance. Greg? Oh. What detail did you want on the monthly code compliance that isn't already there? Because I know sometimes there's, from a legal standpoint, you can't tell what they're doing on some of the things because it's pre-litigation. Yeah, I don't know if that's open session or closed session. I know some of the legal stuff has to be closed session. So, okay, maybe that, and then the same thing on the monthly update, we do get monthly, almost monthly, right, reports about our budget and how the actual expenses have measured up against the projections. So what is it you would want more than that? Don't we already get that?
The warrant report does show what was budgeted versus where we're at. I'm sorry, the treasurer's report, that includes the budget report. I believe it includes the budget report. I'll have to double check, but it does show what was budgeted versus whatever activity we've had for the month, the total. But I'll double check.
Carol's got a question.
I just had, on the top of page 3, it says review our codes. I'd include in there state and federal statutes, so that one of our goals is to be in compliance with the state law, as well as our codes.
If I might please, I didn't know we actually discussed this part tonight, but at the top of the second page, it says periodically review our codes and the decisions made by our team to determine how well they are implementing the goals and policies of our general plan. I really appreciate that being in there. I would suggest that perhaps we ought to occasionally include a copy of our general plan when we do this. It's I'm sorry, the goals of our general plan is one-page item, and occasionally, maybe once a year, go through how well are we accomplishing our goals of our general plan or not. The second item is that we have a code enforcement committee. We have, I guess, not sure what the title is, a special prosecutor, a special attorney to help enforce the code, our codes, and go after code violators and so forth. My concern is that we have nothing special. Apparently, we do very little, if anything, to enforce agreements made as a condition of a standards modification. Over a number of years, people have come to me and said, well, what about this, when this house or this structure was built or this was done, this was required as a condition of approval that our view be protected by not having the trees grow too large, or some other reason like that, some other situation like that. And they're told, at least according to what they've told me, is that they're told, well, that's up to you to go ahead sue the other individual. So it seems to me if we have an attorney specializing in code enforcement violations, we also ought to look at enforcing the actual voluntary agreements made by a resident or the successor in who bought the property, that they would comply with the conditions of approval also. Anyway, just a thought. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're through for the night, so thank you very much for having the meeting, and we are adjourned.